Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. We've made it almost to the end of the month, as a matter of fact. What is today? The 30th. So what do we have? One more day. Dustin Schutte along for the ride from Outsider.com, as he is generally. I'm Jim Coyle. Welcome aboard. Appreciate you joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Of course, we're brought to you by our good friends at Endeavor Hospitality and the Wow Club. Make sure you sign up for the Wow Club. Start earning Wow rewards today to great places like Phoebe's Market, who's your butcher, meat cutter, baker, no matter where you live, with excellent in-house made products. Do our show there each and every Friday. I love it. Have fun there. Also, our good friends from Andy Moore Honda. AndyMooreHonda.com is where all you place you have to go to find the best in new and used vehicles. Welcome aboard, and appreciate you being here on this Monday. Want to give a shout out to the great folks at WJOB up in the region, and we're greatly proud to be a part of your the lineup up in the region, getting the voice out in there, as they are the voice of the region, baby. So we're proud to be a part of your lineup. So welcome aboard, guys, and feel free to comment, jump on, do whatever you like when you have the opportunity. You get to do so. On the program today, Don Fischer joins us as usual, and we'll hear from Don as Indiana is in the midst of this best winning streak since 2016. Last time they won a Big Ten championship. They won 7 in a row. And is that possible now? Well, we'll talk about that. A couple of teams stand in the way of that. Don Fischer will be on, and we'll talk with him about that as Indiana is rolling, like I said. Also on the program today, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, as he always joins us as well. So looking forward to another great program. John, the producer, along to keep us between the white lines. How are you, sir?
I am doing okay. It's great to be back on the show, first of all. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to have a lot of Dayquil running through my veins these next couple days because I am getting my butt kicked by some sort of illness. So I'm trying to stay with it, but I'm excited to be back.
Well, we're more than excited to have you, I can assure you. Kevin says hello from Jeffersonville. We got people on from all over, as we appreciate you. Fred, the Easton assassin from Easton, Pennsylvania, up and at it. Doug, Kenneth, appreciate everybody. Hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. You can do the same as well. Just hit us up on, if you're not listening on radio, on great stations like WJRB or The Ref in Evansville or WBRO in Marengo. Then you can find us on YouTube. And if you do that, make sure you just hit the like and subscribe buttons. But we've got some comments today from the NFL playoffs. How did the playoffs go the way you thought they were going to go? I mean, I guess the Kansas City Cincinnati question is probably a coin toss, with the exception of that it was in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they went the way I thought they would go. San Francisco dealt with some situations where they had to play Brock Purdy was the third string quarterback. He got hurt. Josh Johnson
It reminded me of the movie Any Given Sunday.
It did. It's been a long time since I've seen any given Sunday.
The starter goes down, the backup goes in for one play, and he goes down, and then they got to get to Jamie Foxx, which he was like,
right.
What? It was the great part of the movie, but
it would have been awesome if we saw a punter play quarterback.
But my favorite part is one of my favorite lines comes from that movie, and it's from that situation when they're like, I don't know, they're telling the trainer he's got to do something. He's like, what happened to what's his name, who was the backup quarterback? Said, oh, he got hurt. He goes, what'd he do? Fall off the bench? Oh, it's one of my favorite comments. But happy to have everybody on today. But
I thought that was a great game last night, the AFC Championship between the Bengals and the Chiefs. I mean, I expected it to be a close game. I don't know that I had a winner in mind, but I expected it to be a close game. What was interesting to me was there seemed to be a lot of complaining about the officiating. Other than the redo on that third down late in the game, which ended up really not mattering, I thought that for the most part, the calls were pretty accurate on that game. So I don't know. It was interesting. The Cincinnati mayor and the Kansas City mayor got into a little bit of a spat on social media leading up to that game.
Now, I missed that. So lay that out for us. I did not see that.
So initially, the Cincinnati mayor declared like an official proclamation and requested that Joe Burrow get a paternity test to make sure he was not Patrick Mahomes' father, because heading into that game on Sunday night, Joe Burrow owned a 3-0 record against Patrick Mahomes. They quote unquote changed the name from Arrowhead Stadium to Burrowhead Stadium. And so the Kansas City mayor snapped back and called it with some weak shade, calling him weak as hell. And then obviously Kansas City won, and guys like Travis Kelce, who are pretty animated, fired some shots back at the mayor and Cincinnati. So it added an element of, like, I don't think of Cincinnati and Kansas City as like a rivalry game or a rivalry matchup, but it added a little bit of that intensity to it. That's for sure.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think we have some clips that may go right along with that. John Boy, let's see. What's the first one? Who is this? Kelce?
They're both.
Yeah, so both of these are Travis Kelce. He started off with this little comment.
Oh, thank God, man. Woo! Burrowhead my ass. Woo!
That's when he's being interviewed by the
Mahomes was being interviewed, and he decided to bombard the interview to give his little 2 cents in.
Everybody bombarded that interview. I don't know how they got through it. It was like everybody was jumping on that, but yeah.
And then later on, during the trophy presentation, he came in with this comment.
Hey, I got some wise words for that Cincinnati mayor. Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni.
Anything to get the word jabroni on the broadcast is well worth it. Jabroni is a word that needs to be revived, man. It's a great word, but that is hilarious. And you want to talk about eating some crow this morning, buddy? He's got a big old bowl of it, a big old pot of crow to eat in Cincinnati. So I hope they cook it well there. I'm all for supporting your peeps. And you know what? If you like, I don't have a problem with the Cincinnati mayor, because you got to support your people, man. You got to believe in them. And you, because if you don't, they're going to see that. All they know is you supported them. They don't care, but it makes for good,
it's great for the fans.
It's great for us. It's great for us. It's great for us, you jabroni.
It's right. I would say the one thing is you probably don't want to piss off Patrick Mahomes. That's probably the one thing you don't want to do. Is
not a good thing to do.
So other than that, but like in terms of it just being like fun witty. Well, I don't know that it was witty, but fun banter. I love that stuff in sports. That's what makes it fun, right?
Absolutely. So now the Super Bowl is set between. Well, we didn't really talk about the other game. The Philadelphia wins easily over San Francisco. So that was not much of a contest, really. The Eagles into the Super Bowl for the first time. How long has it been since they've been in the Super Bowl?
What was it, 2017 or 8? I think it was 17.
So not that long ago.
So it wasn't that long, no.
The Philly crowd, man, they're going to love it.
They were already they did you see? So earlier in the week, the police had greased the light poles all throughout Philadelphia, so that way
this is so funny.
That didn't stop them at all, and
it never does. I was just getting ready to say, every time we start talking about a pre-celebration and people greasing light poles, it doesn't work. So what are they using for grease? It ain't working. What are they using? Pam? Spraying some Pam on this thing? It's not. You need some industrial high grades business stuff, man. And then what are you going to do with the grease after that? You've got all these greasy light poles.
I just want to see people out there with like a paintbrush and a giant box of Crisco and just like paintbrushing the light poles. Because that's a funny image to me. I'm sure that's not how that goes, but it would be hilarious. And there were a bunch of people who I hope everybody was okay. I didn't hear that there was any disaster, but there were a bunch of Philadelphia fans on top of a bus stop, like one of those structures that sits over a bus stop, and
the ones on the corner.
Yeah, they were all on the roof of that, and it caved in, and they all fell through. So, just gives you an idea. And I think actually, even the police came in with like riot gear at one point last night. So it must have gotten pretty crazy.
And guess what happens next? Those people sue the city for getting hurt.
Probably.
Yeah. I don't understand celebrating to that level.
I think it's an excuse to act like a maniac.
It actually is an excuse for drunk, stupid, or just stupid people to act like ignorant jackasses.
Correct.
There's just no reason. I mean, I think back when I was younger and was as excited as I could be over a win. I was pretty young when Indiana won their last national championship, as we all were. Hint. But I did not have any desire to run out into the streets and start a bonfire.
Oh, come on.
I didn't have a desire to run out to drag my couch out into the street and set it on fire. I didn't have any desire to climb a light pole.
I would injure myself if I tried to do any of these things. I would be the one on fire, to be quite honest.
Yeah, there's nothing that someone else does that should get you that jacked up.
I don't think there's anything that you do that should get you that jacked up. Is there?
Exactly. Well, my whole point is if you're getting that jacked up off of somebody else, man, it's you've lost a little sense of reality. I think it's more of I think people do it for attention, to be honest with you.
Well, I think they just
as dumb as that sounds.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's also like they just want to be a jackass for a night, and they know that they can get away with it.
Yes, you're right. I don't know. I agree.
Get away with it, but if you're in a big crowd of people, it's going to be harder to reprimand you, arrest you, whatever the case might be. So then you get a lot of people who start acting like a bunch of idiots, and you see cars getting set on fire, the bus station structure, the roof caving into, that sort of thing. I mean, it's somewhat entertaining to see it on social media because I don't have to live there, but it's wild.
It is. Hey, lots of basketball going on, like we talked about Indiana with another win over the weekend as they knock off the Ohio State Buckeyes, 86-70. Buddy, that was a blitz We'll talk to Don Fischer when he joins us here at the top of the hour. But Indiana ended the first half on it was a 15-0 run, but it was a 17-1 run is what it was. And it went to 19-1 because Indiana scored the first basket out of the half. Trace Jackson Davis, I remember that. So that went to a 19-1 run. Buddy, you don't recover. You don't recover from those kinds of runs that late in a game. If that comes in the first 7 minutes of the game, Ohio State has a shot, or any team has a shot to recover from that. Even that, then it's very, very hard to recover from those blitzes like that.
Right.
But coming at the end of the half, man, you're going into the halftime locker room. You just gave up 17-1 points. Woo, there ain't a lot that's going to smooth over. There ain't enough Crisco to make that smooth.
I like it.
It's just not going to happen. And so Indiana just kept them at bay. I mean,
they did.
The rest of the half, they came out, and like I said, they scored the first basket and was able to maintain a lead. It never got below double digits.
Well,
I think it got very low at all. 15, 13. They kind of kept it at that margin for most of the way. Now Indiana sets, by the way. Remember a few weeks ago when they were 1-4 and tied for last with Minnesota in the Big Ten? It was not that long ago, people. There's a few weeks, 1-4. But when you win 5 straight,
I was
around.
I don't want to say I was ready to count them out. I was ready to count them out of the Big Ten race because I thought at that point
they are out of the Big Ten race, as is everyone else.
Are they?
Purdue's schedule is too easy, brother.
Well, okay, but Indiana controls,
and they're winning.
Well,
they beat the crap out of Michigan State yesterday.
I know, but Indiana does have. I mean, they don't control their own destiny because they have 4 losses. So even if they win those 2 games, they're still a game back. But
here's what needed to happen. They needed Purdue to lose that game to Nebraska that they won. That would have been unbelievable that they lost that. But they should have lost that. They should have lost that game. Could have lost easily to Michigan State or Ohio State.
Yep.
So, could have, should have, would have. I understand. But if those 3 losses, if actually those turn into losses, and that makes Purdue, that would make Purdue like 7-8-3 right now. No, 7-4.
You got to do
right
math
now, or 3, something like that. Anyway, yeah. Regardless, my point
it would be a much tighter race, is what the point is.
Oh, it would be an the craziest, tightest race I've ever seen in the history of the conference, because still you've got teams that are you go all the way down to Iowa, which is like 10th, and these teams are 2 games apart. Just 2 games.
I think what's been most impressive to me, Jim, has been this is the Indiana we thought we would see from the start of the season, or at least from the start of the Big Ten season, because they're not just I'm going to throw the Minnesota game out because there were some variables there in which Mike Woodson's not coaching. You had some changes in that game, so I'm going to throw that out. But they have absolutely dominated in 4 of these 5 games. Trace Jackson Davis has put up a double-double 4 times in the last 5 games. He has been as dominant as any player in the Big Ten. That includes Zach Edey. Like he's been on a level. I think Zach Edey is a I don't know what the right word would be. I think he's a more
immovable object.
Immovable object. He's probably he's probably a bigger threat because he's harder to stop because of his size. But Trace Jackson Davis has been just as dominant on the glass, on the floor, around the basket. This
I
team
said this last week.
looks
You weren't
like
with us. Trace Jackson Davis had a little lull. Indiana had a little lull. Trace Jackson Davis had a lull. He wasn't playing well. There was a couple games, like 3 games. He didn't play well. He just visually, you could look like, dude. Then all of a sudden, something happened, and he became the player that we expected him to be, and he has been dominant, dominating. He has outplayed any and everybody, not only in the conference, but maybe in the country for that matter, over that stretch. It was crazy. So we'll talk about that and much more. We got lots more to go here on the program today. Don Fischer joins us next, the voice of the Hoosiers. So look forward to that. Dustin Dopirak later on from the Indy Star. All kinds of things going on. Happy to be on it. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're brought to you by our good friends from places like GoTeen. For those of you on the go, whether it's you, your kids, your team, you need GoTeen, and incredible way to get a midday bounce or a snack or that healthy food, whatever you need it. Reach out to GoTeamBites.com, or you can get those at BB's Market. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right.
What's Scott's last name? Daggone it. Up at the JOB.
Oh, you mean Sam?
Yeah, Sam.
Let me look real quick.
I meant to give him a shout out.
It is. It's spelled Michel, so it could be a couple different pronunciations.
Sam Michelle, I'm going to go with.
Okay. Hopefully you're right.
Michael would have an. I don't know. I've ever heard Michael's.
Good morning, Mr. Fisher.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Great. How are you doing, brother?
Same old, same old.
Oh, I don't know about that, man. You're in the midst of a 5-game winning streak.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh. Boy, he's bringing the confidence in today.
Yeah,
Travis Kelce.
Until I start talking.
Travis Kelce.
Let's see what I do here. Oh, here we go.
John, how much time we got?
Minute 45.
Yes.
Oh boy.
You good, Dustin?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
I like the golf aesthetic you've got in the background.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
They do a lot more good sitting in this room than they do on the actual golf course. So
It doesn't matter.
Mitchell Page's comments about I can't remember what he said, Dustin, but he was behind somebody on a course. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter or not. Maybe you didn't. It was pretty funny.
Mitchell?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I just know he makes fun of me every time I tell him my score.
Hey, just the next time you see him, Dustin, just say, how do you fare when you play against Don Fischer?
I'll bring that up next time.
And let me just tell you, he's a much better player than I am. I mean, really, he's like a 2 or 3 handicap, I think, from what I've been told these days. He's been playing, but I've beaten him both times. We actually we played. I got him with us when we were down for the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. We got to play Sawgrass, and I got him on for that event. And I think I shot like 88 or 89, and he shot 90.
Wow.
And he like put balls in the water. He put like 2 in the water on the last.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Monday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, of course, brought to you by our great friends from Southern Stone Restaurant, part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Make sure you go to the Wow Club, sign up, start earning Wow rewards today. And, of course, each Monday night, normally, you can find Inside Indiana Basketball at 7:05 with Don Fischer and Coach Mike Woodson. Not tonight, though, because the team is traveling, and they've already headed over to, or at least if they haven't, they're on their way to Maryland. Right, Don Fischer?
Well, we'll be with them later today because we will travel this afternoon. But, yes, the team will be headed to Maryland for tomorrow night's matchup with the Terrapins. That's going to be a challenge. There's no question about it. They're playing some of their best basketball right now. They've lost only one time this year in the Xfinity Center, and they've beaten everybody they played there in the last three matchups significantly. So they're playing some of their best basketball of the year under Kevin Willard, a first-year coach, and I think Indiana cannot look past this game in any way, shape, or form. I don't think they will because Maryland's right there with them as far as the standings are concerned right now. But I think Indiana's a game up in the standings. Maryland's 5-5, Indiana's 6-4. So you can't afford to let down against anybody, and I think this is a real challenging matchup for Indiana.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out who the only team that beat them, and that happens to be the UCLA Bruins.
That's correct.
So a top 10 team, and I knew that's what I've been telling people. They were like, "Oh yeah, they win that game." I'm like, "No, don't." Not that they can't, but I'm like, they're 10-1 for a freaking reason. That for whatever reason they play their best basketball at home, and only UCLA has been able to beat them. But Indiana is playing really well right now, and so I think that they definitely have a chance. Indiana can win this game. I don't. Do I think that they will? People have been asking me. I'm like, if I had to bet, I would not bet on Indiana winning this game, but it's not because of Indiana. It's more because of what Maryland has been doing and the numbers. Indiana's won 5 in a row. You're like, okay, it's the Big Ten. You can't win that many in a row anymore, but they are. And, boy, if they happen to win, I hate putting the cart before the horse, but if they happen to win that game, I think most people know what game is following that one. So that would be a 6-game winning streak heading into that game would be huge. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. As Maryland, like you said, so tough at home this year for whatever reason. They're not great on the road, but man, they're tough at home, and Indiana is going to definitely get their best game done.
Yeah, I don't think, and I looked at the roster for Maryland. They've got a ball club that has 3 guys that played a lot last year back. Dante Scott, Hakeem Hart, I think, is a really underrated player that doesn't get a lot of recognition, but I think he's a really talented kid. And the Reese kid inside. So they've got 3 guys that are back from a year ago, and then they've got 2 transfers that start, Carey and Young. Young is leading them in scoring with, I think, 18 a game in Big Ten play. He's been terrific this year. This is going to be a very tough matchup for Indiana. There's no question about it. They are going to have to go in there focused, ready to understand that they're going to have to compete for 40 minutes. And if they don't compete for 40 minutes, they could get their socks knocked off because this is a good basketball team.
Well, and this is a game. Sorry, Dustin. I'm just going to quickly say this is a game where we've seen them get off to slow starts more often than not. Kind of started to do that against Ohio State the other night and then broke out of it quickly. But if you do that on the road, man, it seems to snowball a lot faster.
Yep. Well, the Ohio State ball game was interesting because up until that last television timeout in the first half, it was 29-29. Then Indiana went on this incredible 17-1 run to close the half, to take a 16-point lead into the second half, and then Indiana kind of coasted the second half. And I'm not saying that it wasn't Ohio State that had an issue with that because Ohio State really played hard, but Indiana didn't just blow them out the rest of the ball game. But that 17-1 stretch, they certainly did blow them out, and it was plenty enough to win the contest.
Is there another stretch that you remember bigger than that one since the Michigan? What was it, like 28-0?
That's probably as big as we've had for a while. You're asking me a question about memory, and I have no memory of anything. So,
well, I'm with you there, brother. I'm with you there. That's why I was trying to combine the two.
Yeah, I don't recall. All I can tell you is that Indiana is playing the best basketball they've played all year long. The Minnesota game is obviously an outlier in that sense, but they still were able to find a way to win it on a tough place to play after you've given a team confidence and let them stay in the ball game. And then Minnesota played differently than any team has this year against IU. They basically came across half court, dribbled the ball for 20 seconds before they ever got into their offense. And it's a little bit frustrating, I think, from a defensive standpoint for a team when you're dealing with that kind of scenario and you haven't really faced it before. So I just think it was a good win for Indiana. Obviously, it was a close but no cigar type win because they certainly didn't play their best basketball. But, except for Trace Jackson-Davis, who was just absolutely phenomenal, 25, 21, and 6. And then, he was just tremendous in that ball game. And that, I guess it was a pass that Race Thompson threw up there, kind of an alley-oop pass. I thought the ball actually slipped out of his hands and just went up in the air because Trace went behind. Literally caught the ball back behind him and threw that thing down. It was one of the most amazing dunks I've seen in a long time.
It really was. And the funny thing is, it seemed like it came out of nowhere. It was like, oh, boom, boom. It happened so fast. I'm like, oh, man, he went up there. That was like
that's why
Victor Oladipo high.
That's why I thought the ball slipped out of Race's hand. I thought it actually slipped out of Race's hands. I didn't think. And then I said something to somebody after the ball game. I said, did that ball slip out of his hands? He says, no, he lobbed it to him, but he's a bad lobber. So all I know is it was a phenomenal play by Jackson-Davis.
What's been really interesting and optimistic to see from this team, Don, has, a few weeks ago we were talking about somebody's got to step up. We got to see more toughness out of this team on the defensive end. We got to see them play with a little bit more grit. And it seemed like it was almost a given that any Big Ten team could score 80 points on Indiana's defense on any given day. They have not given up. They've given up 70 points once, and that was in a 16-point win against Ohio State. Is this team finally starting to maybe gel a little bit more now that they've got that cohesiveness going? Because what we saw in that Wisconsin game, maybe you haven't seen that same sort of tenacity each and every game, but they're playing so much better on the defensive end over these last 5 ball games.
Well, and that's the key to this basketball team. Let's face it. This is a ball club that when they play good defense, they give themselves an opportunity every time they play. And that's the whole story of college basketball these days. If my phone would stop ringing, I'd have no problem. But at any rate, what I'm thinking about here is defense travels. You can play good defense no matter where you go because you're not shooting the basketball. All you're doing is trying to stop the other team from shooting it. And it's effort, it's toughness, and it's intensity. And those are the things that this team has brought to the table in this 6-game winning streak, or 5-game winning streak. There's no doubt that they played some of their best defense. They played some of their best offense, and defense leads to offense most of the time. And if it doesn't, your defense can still have you in there and hang you into ball games. So you're right. They're playing better defense right now. There's no question about that. And they're getting more guys to do that. Malik has gotten better defensively. We saw Caleb Banks in this ball game for the first time in I don't know how long.
Since mop-up minutes. I don't think he's played any substantial minutes this season. Yesterday were substantial, meaningful, game-important minutes. I don't know that he's done that this year that I can remember.
No, I agree with you. He's had a couple of good ball games. He shot the ball really well when he's had opportunities, and he did in this ball game. He was 2 for 3. So you're getting everybody kind of to buy in at this point, which is critical as a basketball team as you go through the season. And Indiana's dealing with injuries. Logan Duncombe has been out for a couple of ball games. Of course, he's not playing a lot, But Jordan Geronimo certainly has been a factor here in these ball games that they've won here in this little win streak that they've got going right now. And he wasn't available in this ball game. And Malik steps up and knocks down 15 points in this game. So many different people contributing at this point. And that's what you want to see as the season goes along, that development.
And that's what I think has also been really impressive, because you just mentioned it. Trace Jackson Davis has been the staple game in and game out. He's been the most dominant player, I think, maybe in the Big Ten over these past 5 games. You put him and Zach Edey in the same category, and I don't know if there's anybody else in there that sniffs it. But you go back to the Wisconsin game. Jordan Geronimo played extremely well in that game. Ohio State, you had Jalen Hood-Schifino step up. Minnesota, Malik Reneau comes in and gets 10 points. And then I think Michigan State, it was Trey Galloway and Tamar Bates each had 17 points.
Right.
So this is a team that we talked about all offseason. One of the reasons they could be so dangerous is because they had that depth. And at times earlier in this Big Ten stretch, you were like, where's this depth we were talking about? Now you're finally starting to see it. And that's what I think makes this team so dangerous here in these final, 9 to 10 ball games.
I agree. I mean, the bench is starting to come through. You've got different people stepping up in different ball games, and that's what a good team does. You're not going to all play great every time you go out there on the floor. Now, you got to have most of your guys playing great if you're going to beat the best teams that you're going to face. But at the same time, it's not always going to be the same guy, and that's certainly been the case in this 5-game winning streak. They have had different people step up in different ball games, and that is really a lot of fun to see.
Well, it was as Five Leps is pointing out 19 days ago is what I was talking about. Indiana sat at 1-4, last place in the Big Ten Conference alongside Minnesota. But now, 5 games later, they're at 6-4 and tied for 3rd place. And man, if Purdue would have cooperated and lost the game with Nebraska like they should have, and possibly the game with Michigan State and Ohio State, to make them that would be 7-4 or whatever. This would be the most unbelievable conference race. But well, you've been around longer than involved in this we have done, but this conference race would have been about 12 teams within 2 games, because after Purdue, you've got about 11 teams within 2 games of each other.
Right. Yeah, it's a crazy race this year. Parity in college basketball, we've known about it for a long time. Everybody's got good players these days. It's just a matter. Coaching is a big factor in the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten probably has the best coaching in the country from a conference perspective. I don't think there's much doubt about that. It's proven out over the years. The biggest problem the Big Ten's had from a recognition perspective has been their inability to get a bunch of people in the NCAA tournament to go very far. That's been the biggest issue. And
why do you think that has been that? It's just because it's been a long, long stretch.
I think a big part of it. I'm just going to tell you another thing that probably tells you how old I am. But Bob Knight talked about the fact that this Big Ten tournament, it wears you out.
Yeah.
And I mean, now they've got it set up so that now you get all these buys. Now, if the top 4 teams ought to win the Big Ten tournament, whoever is in the top 4 teams, because they get 2 rounds by. So, yeah. I mean, but it wears you out, the Big Ten tournament. And I know the ACC and the Big 12, they all play a conference tournament. I get that. But you're going through the grind of the Big Ten season before you play this conference tournament. Then you play the conference tournament. Now you get into the NCAA tournament. You're going to face nobody that can't beat you. So, I mean, to me, that's a big part of it. I just think conference tournaments at the end of the season have, especially if it's a team that wins like three games in their conference tournament to get to the championship, or wins 3 games in the tournament itself, to win that Big Ten. I think you're wore out. I just do.
Well, you're not alone in those sentiments, because we've seen other people talk about that here of late, and especially for Indiana. I don't know if there's a team of bigger stature that has done worse in a conference tournament than Indiana has over the course of the years. Made the championship game just the once against Iowa. It's just an odd thing when you look at a span of time. You're like, come on, really? But who knows? Last year, man, they were close to if they could get past Iowa, and they almost did. It would have been, who knows what the confidence for that team would have been. But we see what it did for that team last year, at least, I guess, besides wear them out before they got to the NCAA tournament. But, yeah, we head forward now. And like I said, it's a big week for Indiana. And since you won't be on with us before they play, after the game with Maryland, Purdue in Bloomington at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, that is going to be a monster 4:00 in the afternoon game.
No question. All eyes will be on that one, especially from Big Ten country, because obviously this is a rivalry ball game on top of everything else, up top of what's at stake. And of course, if Indiana wins this game against Maryland tomorrow night, it's going to make it even bigger, because Indiana will be on this 6-game win streak if they knock off Maryland tomorrow night. So I'm excited about it, just like everybody else is, but I'm more interested in this Maryland matchup. This is the game that I want. I want out of this week, if we're going to win one ball game, and I know people are going to say, well, that's sacrilegious, Don. If there's one game you want to win this, no, I want to win this game against Maryland, because I want to stay in the hunt here. If they lose,
being a coach, folks, he's taking it one game at a time.
If you're going to beat somebody in this week, you've got to beat Maryland, because they're one of the teams that are chasing you, and one of the teams you want to stay ahead of. So, look, right now, I think that's the game I want to see Indiana win. And of course, after we beat Maryland on Tuesday night, then I'll want to see us win against Purdue.
There you go.
And I know you're not an analyst, but with Maryland playing, so what's it going to take for this Indiana team? They've got to continue to play the deep. You talked about the defense they've been playing, and that has been the difference, period, for this team, because it has. Not only is it leading to better offense, I think it is working better for this team mentally. It is making them feel more accomplished, because they are, and it is just the confidence Trace Jackson Davis is playing with is sick right now. He's catching the ball from 8 feet out and making moves that he has not made in his career. So he is playing with great confidence, and that is of uber importance for this team. But they have got to go into that arena knowing that, hey, we're facing an uphill battle. They're not going to be a favorite in that game. They're going to be an underdog, and they need to approach it that way.
Exactly. And I think this coaching staff has done it. I mean, Mike never talks about the next game. I can't get him to talk about the next game on our talk shows on Monday night. So I'll talk about, well, this Wednesday night we're playing Minnesota, and then on Saturday we're taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Well, I'm talking about Maryland. That's all I'm talking about. He won't talk about, or not Maryland, but anyway, you get my point. Mike is not ahead of himself in that regard, and he talks to his team in that regard. So I don't think Indiana will get ahead of themselves. I don't think they're looking ahead to Purdue. They know that this Maryland ball game is the most important one on the schedule.
Normally, you can find Don Fischer alongside Mike Woodson, head coach of Indiana basketball, for Inside Indiana Basketball at Southern Stone Restaurant on Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Not tonight, as the team is traveling to College Park, Maryland, to take on the Terrapins tomorrow. So they'll skip that. Back next week, right, Don?
Yep, we'll be back on next Monday night for Inside IU Basketball with Coach. And obviously, because we're traveling this week on Monday, we can't do the show tonight. So that's the reason we are not on the air this evening.
Well, you and Eric have safe travels, my friend, and a great broadcast.
We'll look forward to it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Talk to you next week.
The great Don Fischer joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, high atop the 18th fairway, brought to you by our good friends from Southern Stone Restaurant, a part of the Endeavor Wow Hospitality Group, where you should join the Wow Club. Go to the Wow Club, start earning Wow rewards today. Back with the great Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
Good morning, y'all.
What's up, my friend?
Your job has gotten a lot more painful.
Yeah, for the most part. It's got less interesting, but it'll get more interesting. Apparently, Tyrese, they're hoping for this weekend.
Wimbayama.
Wimbayama. Don't even talk about it. Don't get them started.
It's not going to happen.
They would have to lose out. They would have to lose out to have a real crack at it. Like they'd have to drop 30 in a row. It'd be nuts.
Who's the worst team in the league?
Is it Houston or is it San Antonio? I think it's Houston.
Might be
Houston, really? Holy crap!
Hold on.
Houston's 12 and 38. So
Detroit.
Oh my God! Is that just because they got rid of?
Detroit's 13 and 38. San Antonio 14 and 36, and then Charlotte is 15 and 36. So those are the 4 worst teams.
Yeah. No, I mean you're not like you would have to. They're not going to win a lot more. Like Orlando's going to dig out of it a little bit, like just by virtue of having good players. You know, I don't understand how Orlando only has 19 wins. Honestly, like that I don't like. Go ahead.
I don't understand how Orlando is always in rebuilding mode.
I don't either. I mean, but like especially now, like. It seems like they've managed to hold the brakes on the thing to just keep getting players and just keep amassing talent. You know, it's like they refuse to let the car move. Like they have this like it's not a Ferrari, but they have like a totally functional vehicle that they keep basically in park,
right?
So that they can keep putting parts on it and fixing it up and not letting it go anywhere. There's so much size on that team; it's stupid. Like it's utterly. There's actually too much. Like they've got Mo Bamba on the bench and they barely play him. And like when he plays, you're like, well, he's an NBA player. Like, you're not using this guy?
Yeah.
It's like no. I also have Paulo Banchero and Ball, who comes off the bench and is a freak. Like is proto Victor Wembanyama, basically. Like is a pre-evolutionary state of him because he's 7'3" and has.
You say Ball? Really?
Watch Ball when you get a chance.
It's Minute's son.
Yeah.
Really?
He's crazy.
That's
like
awesome. That's awesome.
It's stupid how good he is. Like and it's just like I mean like he's like a forgotten guy, you know.
Is he thicker than Minute was?
Yes, but I mean that's a low bar.
Right.
10 seconds.
That's like me in the 9th grade.
Yeah.
Here we go.
A coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio commentary here on this Monday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty in Indianapolis. If you're looking for a home in that area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Joined now by our good friend Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. How are you, sir?
Doing well, fellas. How are you guys?
Good, great. I know from a business standpoint, your job is, as Dustin Schutte pointed out in the break, getting a little more challenging, I guess. Challenging, I guess you'd say, as the Pacers have, after shocking all of us and having just such a great season, and we're up to about 8th in the, or no, like sixth in the playoff hunt. When they've dropped to 11th after losing 10 of 11 games. Not good. They beat Chicago back on January 24th, but before that they had not won since January 8th. Not good right now. And only good thing out of that is Mathurin has been your leading scorer 6 times, but of course you're missing Tyrese Halliburton. And
yeah, I mean that's the whole thing.
It shows how this team is. While they have overachieved. When you have an overachieving team and you take out an important piece,
yeah,
That's gonna throw a monkey wrench in the deal.
Yeah, no, it showed that their lack of margin for error. Ultimately, is just that he was really stringing a lot of things together. Now but I mean, there is talent. I mean, that there is some, I think, value to. There were some individual developments that were good over the course of this. I mean, I think that they're hoping to get Halliburton back this weekend. Apparently, he's going to practice Tuesday and Wednesday. They have a rare, some rare sort of time between games. That they have today, tomorrow, and Wednesday of no basketball or no games, and they play the Lakers on Thursday. What's going to be still a very expensive ticket, even though LeBron sitting out last night means he's probably not going to break Kareem's record at Gainbridge, but it's still going to be a packed house, and it's an expensive seat. But they're hoping to get Halliburton back. I mean, I think they'd like to get him back for that game, because I think that's winnable if they have him. They obviously beat the Lakers in LA. So you see obviously just how valuable Halliburton was, and they had been saying this, like they're not shocked that he was that important, because they players included, along with coaches, were just like, this guy is so central to what we do. He's our soul. Like, he is our heart. He's our soul. He's our everything. Functionally, he makes everything work, but he's the guy that sort of, just creates the atmosphere. And they basically had a really, really great chemistry, while he was playing. And he's even good just if he's in the building. It's a happier place to be, even if he's not playing. Like, he's just that good of a dude and that likable of a guy, and he just sort of makes everything work around him. And they were just missing so much, and like just so many dominoes fell that just didn't work. Basically, like you could, with him on, not playing, they could defend the living heck out of Buddy Hield, and really, I mean, they've really taken Buddy Hield out. Defensively, is Tyrese Halliburton's not a great defender. I mean, he has a lot of steals. He's really opportunistic, but he's not great he's not a lockdown guy, where like Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith are the two best defenders. So Halliburton's never on like a top guy. But it just seemed like everything was off without him on both ends of the floor. So they're missing him a lot, but like I said, like there have been some developments. I think Mathurin has had a great stretch. They started him for a while, they put him back on the bench, but even when he's been coming off the bench, he's done a lot more playmaking. Just been a better passer, but just been a phenomenal finisher. TJ McConnell had a terrific stretch. He had a bad night last night, didn't score at all, but it was double figures for like 6 games in a row after that, and that's not normal for him. So you saw a lot more of his capabilities as a scorer. Chris Duarte got off the mat. He had a miserable stretch before this, and just finally found some rhythm. So there are some things that are going to be better when they get Halliburton back. They're probably a more complete team now with him. But you saw just how big of a hole he leaves, and just they just never really got right without him. And again, just the big news, the fortunate news is at least their nightmare seems to be over. And obviously it was really costly stretch, losing 10 out of 11, but it doesn't remove them from from the situation. I think they're only a half game back of 10th. They can work their way back into that playoff scenario, so they're not buried. There's still a lot of season left, and they kind of know who they are without him now. There are some guys that got better without him, and I would think that they're going to start winning some ball games, here not too distant future.
Well, and I was going to say, I think it is possible, and I think that this is not a dumb comment, so I'm going to say it. We knew how good Tyrese Halliburton was when he was on the floor, but all this talk about him not being an all-star, the Wally Zerbiak stuff that was said probably a month ago. But I feel like in his absence, you learn just how important he is, how good he is, and how much he makes this Pacers team click, because it's not like they're losing these games close. Like they're getting blown out of these games. They have zero chance in a lot of these games. So to me, this is when he's not on the floor, you see just how important he is, how good he is, and how he makes this team go, because it's a completely different team when he's on the floor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, even the game, they had a couple that they lost that were close. Atlanta was close. They lost on a tip-in. Milwaukee on MLK Day, that afternoon game, was close for the most part. They just, the bottom fell out at the end. And so you saw that, like, they were really missing somebody who could really close a ball game.
Right.
Phoenix was another one of those. And so when it was close, it was like that. And when it wasn't, they got the doors blown off. And like they just have so much more firepower when they have him. And just again, all the pieces work together better. When he's an option, it's just like, and everybody's kind of in their role that makes sense. And TJ McConnell, again, I thought he did a phenomenal job of just trying to keep the ship afloat. But he's a better second unit guy. I think this is good because it gives him more confidence to shoot the basketball in his role. But again, he's better in that role. He's better being that guy. I think he absolutely made his all-star case better. It was absurd to say that he was fake or a wannabe. It's going to be a tough call. I mean, it's Thursday night. They're making this decision right before the game against the Kings, or it might actually be right around when it starts is when they're going to make this announcement. Or I'm sorry, against LA. And I mean, it is a tough call. Like when you get into it, I mean, you look at who's on there already. Embiid's a lock because it's just like the front court was brutal in the East because it was like Tatum, Durant, Giannis, and Embiid, and that's only 3 spots, and all 4 of those guys could be MVP. And like one got left off. So you got Embiid for one of those spots. I think Jaylen Brown's a stone cold lock. And then you're looking at you're looking at Drew Holiday, you're looking at Trae Young, you're looking at Pascal Siakam. Like there's a long list of guys for 5 spots that are obscenely talented people. I mean, I got to look at the standings to kind of up, Donovan Mitchell's already on there. Brunson and Randall are still have, possibilities, I think. Who am I forgetting? Kristaps Porzingis, I think, has to be part of that discussion. Brunson's got to be part of that discussion. Banchero has to be part of that discussion. There's a lot of good players for the remaining spots. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. And so, like, how do you get everybody who's deserving onto that team? James Harden. I mean, like, there's just so much talent being considered for these last spots. So it's possible he doesn't make it. For as awesome as he is, it might not be like it won't be a shock because there's going to be really, really good players that do make it. But he's absolutely proven his value. I think you totally see just how good he is. And, they know now, like that a couple of years from now, they're going to have to pay him a lot of money to keep him. He's going to be worth it because, he is so central to where this franchise is going.
Speaking of paying guys a lot of money, the Pacers agreed to a 2-year deal. What was it, around $70 million or so for
60? So
60 to keep Miles Turner, and that's to me that shows that they really like this core. They really like the way they're going to play, and for good reason. So to me, there's been a lot of discussion for a lot of years about what to do with Miles Turner, and clearly the Pacers want to see what this group can do. Now, they might add some pieces in the offseason. You never know what's going to happen. But it seems like the core rotation of guys, the guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Miles Turner, they like the way they're playing together, and they're going to try to add pieces to make this an Eastern Conference contender in the future.
It seems that way. This Turner contract is interesting, though, and I'm sort of waiting to see. We're having a press conference. They are having a press conference that I'm going to at 3:30 today, and I have questions about this whole thing. So it's a fascinating deal because like they did a renegotiate. So like this is like. I'm just learning how to deal with all this salary cap stuff. Like NBA money is a different animal,
right?
And it's wild. And so like it's just sort of beyond me, and I'm just slowly starting to get a grip of what all this stuff means. But they did a very rare renegotiate and extend. This has only happened like 4 times in the cap era since like the CBA that created the cap has existed, and all these rules have been a thing. It hasn't been done in like 4 years since like Robert Covington. So what it means is you can give somebody a whole lot of money on the front end like just renegotiate their current season and give them your cap space. The Pacers have a ton of cap space. I think they were actually below the cap floor. I think so. They might have actually had to go find ways of spending that. So they were able to give him an extra $17 million this year, and it makes their cap hit really big, and it makes it unlikely that he's going to be traded at the deadline. But that doesn't mean he can't be. Like if they would have given him a certain raise, they would have not been able to move him. It would have been they would have been able to trade him for 6 months. But like he's still tradable next week. They could move him if they want to. And for future years, for this year, it's a really bad cap hit because he's going to get 35.1 because he's getting 17 million tacked on to what he was already making, which was 18, which takes it to 35. And so that's a big cap hit if you want him right now. But next year, he's only make about 21. And the year after that, he's going to make about 20. Like, they went as far down from this as you could for the future. And frankly, I thought he was going to be more valuable on the open market. I could be wrong about that, because I don't know the open market all that well, considering. But, I thought he was going to get DeAndre Ayton money.
Yeah.
About 30 million. DeAndre is like 31, 32. Like, I don't think he'd get quite that, but I thought he'd be in the ballpark, especially because the way he's playing, shooting the ball really well, rim protecting. I thought he'd get more than that, and it's a team-friendly deal. It's only like 15, 16% of the cap, so it gives you a lot of room the next 2 years. And it's only a 2-year deal. Max is 4 or 5 depending on certain factors, and so it's a short deal. And so it's basically it is a commitment, but it's only so big of a commitment. Like, if they wanted to move him in the offseason, that's a really team friendly deal. It's really easy to make that trade work if somebody wants him. And the cap's going to go up. I mean, it's going to, like I said, it's going to be about 15%, 60% of the cap next year, be even less the year after that. You can fit him on somebody else's team. So I kind of want to hear from the Pacers, like, what does this say to you? Like, this, like, there's a way where this looks at it, be like, everyone's like, you know what? Like, fine, whatever. This isn't going to be a long-term thing, but we're going to get this deal done. We're going to go have a, pretty press conference. You can use me a bunch of money right now, and maybe this changes. Now, I could be wrong about that because, again, I'm just figuring this stuff out. So I really want to see how this gets dressed up this afternoon to see what it looks like. I mean, it might be, them looking at it the way you see it, like you're thinking of it, but want to see what that looks like. And the fact they're even having a press conference tells me something. But it was very intriguing to me that he is under enough to be tradable by February 9th still.
Let's see. We've got to take a break. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. When we come back, we'll talk a little college hoops and see what else we can scare up. Hey, if you're in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area, Floyd, Clark, Scott, Harrison counties down there, they've served those communities for over 3 decades and can get you in the home faster, quicker, and less expensive than anybody else. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com or our good friend Matt at barbarapop.com. Back with Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda. What's new with you, brother?
Just this, man. Just running around.
I've got I'm just because I have enough sense. It's probably too late for me to get credentialed for the game Thursday. It's probably because it's full.
I mean, you could try.
I'll try, but
give it a shot.
The only reason I was going because I had asked Chris about getting a ticket at he only gets 2 in his son's uses them because I've got that stuff, but I've got
right.
I went yesterday and made some very nice selections for you. Your wife is going to be happy.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
If she's a wine drinker, that is.
She is. She's not like a, massive connoisseur, but she likes it. Yes.
Well, I wasn't thinking she's going to be popping corks sitting at the table and just throwing her up, baby.
Why not?
Do you drink wine?
Me?
No.
Yes, I do. Yes.
The real Dustin. Will the real Dustin please stand up?
Hey. We're both real is the point.
I'm kidding. I kid.
He jokes.
I kid. I love my Dustin. He great. Have you been able to see any? I know you didn't see yesterday's game. I didn't even get to see the Indiana women's Ohio State game because I had an event to be at, but oh my gosh, they are playing
really
lights out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have such a really, really good team.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got they've got what the men's team doesn't have. They have the right pieces in the right places.
Yeah.
And they don't have to combine two to try to get one of those, where Indiana has to do that more than once. I think they're having to use two guys in multiple spots to try to get that. Yes. And that just kind of came to me, but
that's fair. No, I mean, like, I think, yeah, I mean, that's a good way of describing the men. I mean, obviously we were out and about on Saturday, so I only got pieces of that game. But no, I mean, you just don't know with this men's team who's going to show up that night. And like, you probably have enough from night to night that, like, whether it's going to be Hood Schifino, whether it's going to be Bates, whether it's going to be Galloway, whether it's going to be Geronimo, Renew, Thompson, like Kopp, somebody, you're generally going to get something from somebody, but you don't know who the second guy is going to be, and you don't know who the third guy is going to be. And you don't know that person is one of your starters.
No extra charge, so leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this Monday. It's the last Monday of the month, and almost as we reach February on Wednesday. Can't believe that. That means Groundhog Day is not that far away.
That's true.
If Schutte sees his shadow, it's never a good thing.
I'm a groundhog.
Well, maybe a hedgehog.
Something like that.
Let the hair grow a little bit and be a hedgehog.
For the record, she would want me to point that out.
She what?
She has met Punxsutawney Phil. So it was obviously, I grew up, about.
Did you say she's mad? She has a grievance.
She's
met him.
She has communed with the groundhog. Yes,
man, that's
a
celebrity meeting. That's a celebrity meeting that not everybody can claim, man. That's a celebrity meeting that not many people can claim.
Yep.
Bill Murray, maybe. Bill Murray got to do it a lot. Apparently, he got to meet him a lot
in the course of however long that was being shot. Yes.
Yeah, he met him a lot. In the break, something kind of came to me, and I was thinking about the Indiana women's team because they are playing lights out right now. Just destroyed Ohio State this week. Kind of like Indiana with the men's side on the run they went on, just really demoralized that team. And the women did it in was it the third quarter, 26-7 run, I think they put on them. Wow, just a thought about that. How about the combined run the men's and women's team put on Ohio State this year? What is that, 27-17? Holy cow. Don't ask me to do math. 14, 2, 3, 4. 44 to – see, they had a 1 and 6, 7. 44-7 run between the men's and the women's team.
Pretty impressive.
44-7.
The math is pretty wild putting that together. I think on both sides, obviously the women are rolling, and they have been rolling, and they're 20-1. So it's just a totally remarkable season that they put together. Obviously, they already had two real cornerstones in Berger and Holmes coming back that put them in a great spot to start with. But Yardon Garzon, I have no idea how you say her name, so I apologize if I just Garzon and Sydney Parrish have been terrific. Just two huge additions to kind of fill in for just the graduating pieces that the women's team has had over the last couple of years. Have just really done a good job of just keeping that team propped up, and they're rolling, and they're absolutely a national championship contender. There's a good chance South Carolina's just at another level than everybody else, but all the same, I think it's not crazy to imagine them as a Final Four unit for sure. That's
definitely a top seed. They're a number one seed team. But something that came to me is, and the reason is because the women's team has all the right pieces in all the right places, and the men are having to use two players in multiple positions to get the production of one guy. Which is fine with the problem of all those guys have to be on every time to get that production, because if they're off, now you've got half production from somebody. But not only do the women have it on their starting lineup, hell, they got it coming off the bench. They've got, when you talk about depth, they're like 8 deep of what could be starters.
Yeah.
And that makes a gigantic difference. But the starters are all producing and doing it differently. And the men, you look at Miller Kopp, they'll say, well, he does things in different ways and this and that and the other thing, which is fine. I'm not saying he does or doesn't, but the last game
You're saying he doesn't. You like beating up a Miller Kopp. Let's be real about it.
Well, 30 minutes, 5 points.
Yeah.
Again,
2 of 5 shooting. Yeah. No, I mean,
it's not,
obviously.
If he was a defensive specialist, I would get it. He is far from a defensive specialist. And he just passes up shots, or he doesn't have the ability to jump over a 6'3"
he's
guy,
not getting his
I
own,
guess.
whether it's by the bounce or by leaping ability or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean,
but I'm not going to spend our time talking about that because there are too many other good things. Jalen Hood-Schifino his shooting has been up and down this year, but he has played well virtually every game. Unbelievable the other day with 6 first half 3-pointers. He was only 3 off the record. He only attempted 9 in the game, which is the record. So he wasn't going for that. Man, he was close. Trey Saxon-Davis, a slow start for him. He started 2 of 7, but the shots just weren't falling. Him and Malik, I bet you I could count 5 or 6 shots that I remember them being 2 feet from, and it just hits the back of the rim and came back out. And I'm like, damn, things are just falling for them. But they got into that groove and got aggressive. And, man, it was on from there. Malik Renew had a great day in 23 minutes, 6 of 10 for 15 points, 2 of 2 at the free throw line, 8 rebounds. Man, you get 15 and 8 from that dude. That's great production coming in because they didn't have Jordan Geronimo that day. And then Caleb Banks gets only 12 minutes, but it's like he was like Ernest T. Bass in that game. He seems like he was in a lot more episodes than 5. Ernest T. was only in 5 episodes of Andy Griffith, but it seems like a lot more. It seems like Caleb Banks played a lot more yesterday because when he first came in, he was playing like his head was on fire. Man, his arms were up there trying to get rebounds, slapping the ball out. He was you could see he was playing with intensity, and he wanted to make the most of his minutes. Scored 5 points, had 4 rebounds in the first half, ended up with 5 points and 7 rebounds. Now, he was only 1 of 4 at the free throw line, so he's going to have to make up for that because he could have had a really good game. But that's a very positive sign for someone like Caleb Banks, who's played virtually not. I mean, forget about mop-up. Mop-up minutes don't count for me because you're not really playing at that time. So he hasn't played really meaningful minutes. These were very meaningful because it was the first and the second half.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's pretty clear that he knew that this was a game that he could make a name for himself. Name's not the word. Name doesn't really matter. You're not making a name for yourself in a random game in January.
A mark. Make a mark.
A mark. Yeah, just basically like getting in a position where you're saying, hey, Mike Woodson, I can play. Because I think, we obviously spent a lot of time talking about Caleb because I think he was the first. Well, he's the second commitment in the class. Obviously, CJ Gunn transferred. Basically came through from one administration to another. But I think Banks might have been one of the first guys that Mike Woodson got. And I think that, he's obviously a guy that tells you, all right, I've got some size, we've got some length. I can play multiple positions here. You can go really from 2 to 4 with him if you need to. He's a guy that can fill in any of those spots. And he's looking to prove like, hey, I'm a guy that you can trust. I'm a guy that you can, let be out there. And because, there were all kinds of knocks on his game that he didn't have a great defensive awareness or just, didn't just have all the pieces together. And I think he's just trying to show like, you can use me down the stretch. There's going to be openings. There's going to be, obviously nights when guys are hurt or guys are sick or whatever, I can do something with these minutes. You can trust me. And he was obviously motivated there. And like you said, I mean, he hadn't been in too many situations there, but like there have been some nice little flashes from him. That there haven't been a lot of options, but I mean, he's 12 of 19 from the field. I mean, I think you see that he's got some explosiveness. I mean, he's got some shooting range. He's got a handle. It's going to help. Basically, there's going to be a time, I think, where he's valuable. That might not be this year. You might not. Maybe there'll be one other game or two other games, maybe, where Caleb Banks steps in and make a difference. But I think it's important for him to show that he can be trusted in those scenarios. So that's really important. Going back to your thing about it taking multiple guys, I think that's really key. I mean, that really kind of explains where this team is. Just looking at the stat sheet, you've only got, Hood is the only other guy averaging double figures. He's the only guy that's averaging more than 8.5. And so that's what you've seen, is that sometimes you get Tamar Bates, sometimes you get Miller Kopp, sometimes you get Trey Galloway. If you ever get more than one of them, you're in great shape, but you haven't been able to trust that you're going to get buckets from all of those guys. Hood Schifino has been pretty reliable, especially in the absence of Xavier Johnson, because the ball in his hand is in his hand all the time. He's going to have to get buckets somehow. You generally know you're going to get something good out of him on a given night, but you don't know. Obviously, you're not getting 6 threes in the first half all the time. Sometimes you're getting that mid-range jumper to fall a lot. Sometimes you're not. And so, that's usually your number 2, but you frequently don't know who your number 3 is. You've seen really good games from Jordan Geronimo. You've seen games where he's disappeared. You've seen some moments from Malik Renew where he looks like he could be an all Big Ten player and not that Big Ten future. You've seen him disappear entirely. And just all of those wing guards, you haven't been able to know game to game what you're getting from them in terms of production. And that's a big thing. That is, again, a huge difference from the men versus the women, is that from the women, what you're getting from those wings. You're getting buckets from those wings frequently between Parrish and Garzone and Berger. Like you are getting, you're getting scoring, from the perimeter on top of what you're getting out of Holmes. And you've only really been able to truly rely on Jackson Davis as far as IU is concerned. When you get production from other people, they're a really good team. There's been more of that, obviously, in this stretch where they've been winning games. But Minnesota, was another one of those games that reminded you that it's totally possible for everybody else to quiet down and find themselves in the position where they're standing around and all they're trying to do is get the ball to Trace and hope he saves them.
So one of the things, we obviously have Indiana plays Maryland first, but one of the things I've been thinking about is this matchup over the weekend where you're going to have Zach Edey and Trace Jackson Davis. And I'm trying to remember if there's been a matchup recently where you have two players as dominant at their position, basically playing the same position as Zach Edey and Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, I can't think of a matchup, even at like the guard position where it's been this, you're going to see the two best in the Big Ten, like number 1 and number 2. Can anybody shed some light on that? Because I can't think of a recent time where both teams have had like player of the year candidates at this position recently anyway.
Are we talking this year? Like how far back are we going?
No, I mean yeah, at any point at some point in history, I'm sure it's been there. But it's been a while since I think both teams have had that kind of player.
Oh, these two? Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think, I'm trying to think of it. Well, obviously Ivy, for Purdue in Indiana didn't have a match.
Right, exactly.
I'm trying to think going back. I mean,
the closest one I could come up with was Caleb Swanigan and Thomas Bryant.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even that wasn't to this magnitude. I don't. Right. Personally.
You could say, it's not this magnitude, but in terms of just raw talent, you had Carson Edwards and Romeo Langford on the floor at the same time.
That's a good point. Yep.
Now, Romeo was not a player of the year candidate. Romeo was a freshman of the year candidate, but Carson, Carson wasn't player of the year. I mean, I'm trying to remember who was Big Ten player of the year that year. Carson was phenomenal, but it's not like they were guarding each other.
Luka Garza, maybe.
Yeah, Garza would have been. Yeah, Garza would have been player of the year. That's right. That makes sense. In 19. So let me look. But bottom line, yeah, I mean,
breaking out the Google app.
Yeah, exactly. Between these two teams, you know, I think, let me see here, 18-19 was scroll. Well, Cassius Winston actually was Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yep, that makes sense.
That's right. They went to the Final Four, beat Duke. Cassius was phenomenal. I mean, Carson was somewhere in that ballpark. I think he was first team. Anyway, point of the matter is, as far as not just talent but production between these two teams, no, you haven't seen it. It's been a long time, and I can't remember when the last time you saw it, because it just seems like every time one's good, the other isn't.
Right.
So, you know, like 13, you know, when Indiana was good, Purdue was bad. Prior to that, Purdue had Hummel and Johnson and all those guys, and Indiana had nobody. You know, maybe 12, Purdue might have still had somebody left from that group. And I think they might have still had Robbie Hummel maybe. And, you know, IU had Zeller. You know, so I think that was a pretty good game. I think IU won that one. Or might have won both of those that year. But yeah, no, you haven't seen it like this. Now, I think I'm very interested to see how this is going to go, because I think you saw some discussion pop up over the weekend. I think Rob Doster mentioned that you know, it seemed possible to make Edey National Player of the Year and Jackson Davis Big Ten Player of the Year. But what you would have to see is Trace has to win that battle. Like, Trace has got to win one-on-one. You know, you can't. It's not going to go that way if Trace doesn't win it, and you haven't seen it in the past. You know, when it's been those two together, Trace has had a really hard time not committing fouls. You know, that's been the biggest issue, is when he's had to defend him, he's picked up fouls, he's been on the bench. And, you know, that's the reason why they had to play Michael Durr a lot last year, was because Trace got two real fast, and they needed 15, 20 minutes out of Michael Durr. So you don't want to be in a position where you're playing Logan Duncombe in that game.
Right.
Or Renew, for that matter, you know, either one of them. You don't need those guys getting big minutes at the 5, just because you need to space out the fouls against Edey. And it could get that way. You know, it could certainly get that way fast.
So there's an argument. I want to make sure I heard this clearly. There's an argument that you could make one player the Big Ten Player of the Year and the other the National Player of the Year. That makes no sense to me.
There is an argument. It doesn't really. I mean, like, again, at the end of the day, they have to play the games.
Right.
And, you know, once they play head to head, obviously the narrative is going to be formed by that. You know,
absolutely. But I think that the national media already has Zach Edey, and I understand, because he was dominant. Well, not dominant. He was consistent. He was very consistent. He has been very consistent. Had 36 points the other night. Finally, I think he saw Trace Jackson Davis has been killing it, so he's like, hey, I better get some numbers here, because he's making some noise. But I think Trace Jackson Davis, I've said this, he outplayed Zach Edey in the month of January, without question. So, and
without question,
I agree with what Dustin Dopirak is saying, that I can see that happening, because the national media has.
It would be a cop-out.
They've already got it, but then the conference media is kind of forced to pay a little more attention than those guys are.
I mean, I would also point out, like, Trace had to be more special. You know, you look at the games that Edey's got. I'm just looking at his, you know, Basketball Reference game logs. You know, like, he had 12 against Minnesota. Well, guess why he had 12 in Minnesota? Because they held Minnesota under 40. You know, like they didn't need him to go off. He was 6 of 9 from the field. That's a totally fine evening. I don't even know how many minutes he played. 27. You know, so he got to kind of relax in that one, because they just blew their doors off. You know, at 24 against Maryland. You know, 19 against Michigan. They didn't. The only game they lost was Rutgers at the beginning of the month. You know, like, it is a scenario where if you don't have to play that much, and if they don't need that much from you, we had 32 and 17 against Michigan State the first time, 38 and 13 the second time. That's really impressive. So no, I mean, I think, you know, obviously it's what you're asked to do, and, you know, Purdue is winning at a level where, you know, like, they need a lot from Edey, but they don't need 30 from him every night. You know, Indiana has needed like 30 from Trace almost every night. Like, there's never a night where they don't need him to go off. So again,
which to me makes that, well, that definitely
so
makes.
Are you player of the year? Are you really the MVP when they've got all these other guys? that are good. But I think it's clear that like Edey is their best player by a long shot.
If they lose Zach Edey, they're done.
Yeah, they're not in this discussion. I mean, they would be an okay team.
They would fall like a rock.
Player. Yeah,
but so would Indiana. No different than Indiana. If Indiana were to lose,
if you take either of those guys off this team, they bottom out. Yeah, they absolutely bottom out. They're not. They don't have nearly enough that's trustworthy. They've got talent that hasn't necessarily rose to the level of being consistent performers. So yeah, I mean, bottom line, they're going to set the narrative based on how they play. And Edey, yes, like, I mean, I know Seth Davis said after the game on Sunday on CBS that Edey's runaway player of the year nationally. And
bull crap.
If Purdue's in that, but if Purdue's a 1 seed, Edey's player of the year.
Oh, absolutely, because it's just like the Heisman. No different than the Heisman voting. People have gotten to where the team you're on, the success that they have, matters to what you win. And I'm like,
well, it's like an MVP. I mean, like, I get it. I get it though. I mean, like, it's just like, I get why.
And that's the thing. Are they voting for an MVP or the player of the year? And I know, and I'm not asking by the name, but most valuable player and player of the year are actually two different things from description.
They are. It's just what it comes down to is like, there is some perception there. It's like, if someone's the runaway best guy and his team's just average, like if everybody's looking at him and like he's going to be the number 1 pick and all this stuff, and everybody can say this is clearly the most talented guy in college basketball, he wins. When it's close, you go with the team whose team wins, because it's like, okay, well, that guy obviously has value. Because I mean, it goes back to like what we said about Tyrese Halliburton. Like it matters that you make your team win.
Right.
It matters. Okay, you could be the biggest highlight reel player and do things that are spectacular, but if your team doesn't win, doesn't matter. Like LeBron James might still be the best player in the world. LeBron James is not going to win MVP this year. Like there's no chance LeBron's winning MVP this year. It's, it could be Joker. It could be, John Morant's not entirely out of the question. Giannis, Luka, guess what? Their teams win. And it's because of them. And so, like, they're going to get an advantage of this. Like, again, no matter how good you think LeBron still is, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having a tremendous season. There's no chance he wins MVP. And it's because all of those guys are on really good teams. Joel Embiid has a chance. Kevin Durant has a chance. Jason Tatum has a chance. All their teams are winning. And because like when all else is equal and all these guys are really, really good, it goes to the guy who wins. It goes to the guy who wins, and winning matters. And we could argue about it in circles, but ultimately, at the end of the day, like if your team doesn't win,
Anthony Thompson lost the Heisman Trophy because he was on a 4-5 team.
Yeah,
that lost to Purdue to end the season. If they had just been 5-5,
he'd have had a crack.
Anthony Thompson would have. Well, I think he would have won. It was one of the closest races ever. Even with that,
I thought you said Randall L, but yeah, Anthony.
Oh, Thompson. No, Anthony Thompson when he finished runner up to
Andre Ware.
He played on a team that had a one under 500, and only one player has won the Heisman on a losing team, and that losing team was Notre Dame, and the guy 40s, was Paul Hornung. A long time ago. But I mean, and he was worthy of it. Paul Hornung. He went on to show that, but. Yeah. They just don't reward that, and God, for Anthony Thompson to be that close on a losing team, I bet he is the closest to winning the Heisman Trophy from a losing team. For someone
in the television era, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I think
it's just
we have all this time to.
I don't want to get on that discussion because that was still angers me. Because
please, we need to take an advertisement.
Oh well, there's that. Before we do that, though, Xavier Johnson. Shooting before the game, he didn't warm up with the team. Obviously, I don't think he's ready to do that. So I don't know. I have people like, what do you think he'll be back? I have no idea when he would be back. I don't know what the situation is with him being able to run and move and cut, because all he did was shoot the basketball the other night. A great sign for Hoosier fans, I'm sure. But getting him back, I was going to ask Don this, but I wonder if, because he plays so fast, does he play too fast for this offense? because they have really kind of come into their own defensively and offensively. And I wonder what putting, even though it's a really good piece, but putting in a different piece like that this late into this run. I mean, hell, they've won 5 games in a row right now.
It's going to be an adjustment. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's definitely going to be an adjustment. And X, I mean, like we've seen, last year, obviously we saw how long it took for, X to get used to IU to get used to X, for them to kind of figure out a situation of like, what do you do to maximize who he is? And that's not going to be it is definitely going to be a shock to the system if they get him back, either for him or for them. And he's obviously either going to have to figure out, okay, what can I do? There's going to be a question of, all right, what can I do on this? Can I play as fast as he usually does, with as much velocity? How does the Hood-Schifino situation, we're being asked about that now, like what does that do for their chemistry
and the offense right there, because he has been running it by himself, and Indiana has been using a point guard system since then. If it's not Jalen Hood-Schifino, Trey Galloway will run the point, and Jalen Hood and then Trey Galloway running that is not X and Jalen Hood running the point. We're talking about a whole different. It's like changing the frequency, man. That's a higher frequency.
It's a different deal. And the thing about it is it can be really effective. I mean, I think we saw before he got hurt that they could be really effective together. They could have situations where it's like, okay, well, one night one guy's going to be good, the other night another one's going to be good. So at least it like kind of has you a buffer there that like if one of them's off, the other one picks it up. I think that's what you saw a lot in the early going. That they can, like Andy here says, X can get to the basket off the dribble and add another dimension in the office. Yes, like it can work. I think you saw that it can work. You saw Jalen can play the 2. He works just fine there. X getting downhill is an absolute weapon. It puts Trace Jackson-Davis in more pick and roll scenarios. They're better. He's better at that because it's really tough cover. When X wants to get downhill, it's really hard to stop him. And so you got to put some bodies on him, and that puts you in a situation where you're scrambling to cover Trace in the roll. And that was absolutely dominant at the end of last season. So that is a weapon that they add. He's a weapon defensively. X can get after you. He can, he can really, get down and guard somebody, and he can take the ball off you, and he can get going in transition. X is a valuable player. So you're not rooting against him coming back. That being said, there's going to be an adjustment period. And it's got to be short, because if, whenever it happens, they're not going to have a lot of time. Like if they lose a game because they don't have it together yet, that's one thing. You get 2, you get 3, you get 4, you got a problem. So, I mean, like they've got to be able to come up with a system and a situation to make it work quickly. And that's not easy to do for college guys in February. It's not. But it definitely raises the ceiling though. Like that's another issue. It's like there's going to be an adjustment period, but they can do things when they have X that I don't think they can do when they don't have him. They are a more potent team, and again, it's just one more guy. Like when you have not had a reliable scorer, anything after Trace Jackson-Davis, like it's one more guy that it could be. It's one more option. Like that if these guys are off, well, it could be this guy today. It's one more guy that you could put in that list, and that matters. That's still helpful to say, like, here's one more guy who's potentially productive, even if that, he can have nights where he doesn't do anything either. But it's like one more guy that could be that guy when everybody else is off.
Dustin Dopirak from Indy Star. Make sure you give him a follow. If you're not already, you're missing out, man. Cannot thank you enough, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
You betcha. Absolutely. Dustin Dopirak from Indy Star joining us as he does each and every Monday, and we're grateful to have him. Grateful knowledge on everything, man. We got lots more coming up. We're going to hear from Caleb Banks, Malik Renew, Mike Woodson, and Chris Holtman. See what their thoughts are on that game, and we'll talk more about the upcoming battle with the Terrapins. Fear the turtle, baby. Brought to you by our good friends at Metalworks Brewing Company, a part of the Endeavor Wow Hospitality Network. Make sure you sign up for the Wow Club today. Start earning Wow rewards to great places like Metalworks Brewing, where they take their place in the community very important, their love of craft beer, and metal art. Stop in. They're right off the square in Bloomington right off 6th Street. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, that's funny.
There you go.
That's quick and funny, actually. I like that. I like that. I like quick humor. How are you feeling, man?
Me? Shit.
But, so what do you got going on?
Hell if I know. It's the third time I've been sick in 4 months, so maybe I'm dying. I don't know.
I'm very fortunate, man. I don't get sick.
I'm not gonna say anything, but
I do need to go get my COVID shot. Someone asked me if I'm gonna get a flu shot. I'm like, yeah, I'd rather have a COVID shot.
You're gonna get a flu shot now?
No, I'm gonna get a COVID shot.
Well, let me tell you.
Another one.
You know what? I'm not gonna.
I haven't had a booster for, since I went through the round of boosters, and I've never had COVID, man. So
let me tell you, I've been sick 3 times in the last 4 months with this same stuff, and that's never ever happened, and it kicks my ass every time. And that's never. I would consider myself a fairly healthy person on what I do and eat day to day. Not. So this is dear God,
Jim, you're gonna have one more break to hit. Just a reminder. After you finish up with these clips, Woodson is your question. Caleb Banks is your question. Malik Renew is a question about Jalen Hood-Schifino. And then Chris Holtman is just kind of his thoughts on the atmosphere at Assembly Hall.
You know what we haven't talked about?
No. What?
The piece of metal that fell from the damn scoreboard in the middle of the game. And
I was wondering why people were bitching about Assembly Hall the other night. I didn't see what happened, but I guess now it makes sense.
That's just, I was on my way up. I was still living in Southern Indiana back when, what was it, 2016 maybe? When Indiana was about to play Iowa. And on my way to the game, news reports start breaking out on everybody's phone. We're like, what?
Yep.
Tonight's game with Iowa and Indiana has been canceled. Like, what? There's no weather problems. What are you talking about?
15 seconds.
As an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Monday, last Monday of January. It's the 30th. Appreciate everybody joining us. About 15 minutes past the hour. Yesterday, Indiana, of course, or Saturday rather, Indiana men's team handled Ohio State 86-70. And that margin is about the margin of the run that Indiana went on at the end of the first half to just blitzkrieg. I mean, Ohio State had to go into that locker room shell-shocked. They were tied, like Don Fischer said earlier. They were tied. And then the next day you look up, you're down 16 points or whatever it was. I was like, what the hell just happened? It was an onslaught. But part of that Was Woody taking I love the fact that he put Caleb Banks in yesterday. Now, they were thin on the front court. You had Logan Duncombe, who's not played a lot, but he was out. Jordan Geronimo comes out in a walking boot to surprise us. Then we're like, oh, wow, it's going to make him a little thin. Then you already had, you've got X out, and then somebody else out yesterday as well. Or Saturday, I can't think, but there was. But regardless, we knew they were kind of thin. And then in the first half, all of a sudden, here comes Caleb Banks, who we haven't seen this year, much less in the first half of a game. But he instantly, I knew, I'm like, well, he's playing his butt off. And I sent a tweet out, said he's out there playing his ass off because he was. He was just active, hitting ball. If the ball went up, if he couldn't rebound it, he was trying to hit it to pop it out. He was just doing all kinds of things. Ended up with 4 points, 5 rebounds, I think, in the first half. 7 rebounds overall for the game. But and Mike Whitson in the post-game presser told him, hey, you played good, kid, or whatever, something like that. I sent that out. But let's hear what he had to say about I asked him about how important it is to see somebody like Caleb Banks, who hasn't played, to be able to come in and play like he did.
Well, it means a lot because that lets me know that coaching has helped him. You know, my staff has done a tremendous job in terms of trying to bring these young guys along. And, you know, everybody's not going to be like Jalen Safino and Malik Renew. And, you know, it's been a slow process with him. But tonight I thought he responded. You know, I feel good about putting him in the game. I don't know if my staff did, but I called the shots when it comes to that. And I played him, and he responded. And I'm going to go in there and pat him on the butt again because I thought he played his butt off.
As he did, and he did as he walked into the presser. He said, hey, Caleb, way to play, son. But I asked Caleb about it as well. I asked Caleb more about Mike Woodson has made a point of make the most of your minutes, and because that's how you get more playing time. And we've seen that. Guys that come in and then all of a sudden, boom, they're out. And you don't see them come back. The reason for that. Caleb Banks came back in the second half. Big difference. Let's hear what Caleb had to say about
that. Definitely wasn't my motivation. It was my shot. I had the feeling before the game, that today was going to be the day. So I tried to make the best out of it. And I think I did well.
Yes, you did well, son. Yes, you did. He certainly did. Let's see, Dustin. I think we got to take a quick break. We've got a couple more comments we can hear from Chris Holtman and Malik Renew, but let's get that last break in so we don't miss that. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill down in Bedford, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality's WOW Club. Make sure you sign up, join the WOW Club, start earning WOW rewards today to great places like Sports Grill. Great place to catch a game, take the family for dinner. Unbelievable, tasty, freshly made Cajun cuisine. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Did I even say anything in that segment?
I don't know if you did. I was just thinking that.
You were cracking up because you were sitting back like this. But there was not really much. All there was me setting up the clips.
Right.
And because I knew we had to take that.
It'd be a quick break.
Like,
yeah.
Damn. And I knew normally I would say, screw it, but we can't.
Well, you can't now.
I understand. That's you saw me do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
We got the two comments in together. That's important because they went together. Yeah, Caleb was he's gonna be one, man. The dude can ball. He just his confidence has got to grow. And he gets that by doing what he did yesterday.
Yeah, I'm glad he got some minutes. Some
meaningful
minutes.
Damn it, I keep forgetting. I still have not mentioned the freaking medal falling. Damn it.
Well, you'll have plenty of time here. You'll have about 9 or 10 minutes to finish up.
Oh, okay. So we can still run those clips?
Yeah, you can still do the clips and you can talk about the other stuff too, because plus we started 2 minutes late, so you have the extra time.
Oh, awesome. All right, so we got Malik and Chris Holtman left.
Mm-hmm.
What did Malik talk about? I forget.
Someone asked him about Jalen Hood-Schifino and their relationship and stuff since they came from.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, he did have a great game. He had an impactful game. And Logan Duncombe was sick. Yeah, that was the other one I forgot about.
I wonder if Logan Duncombe would have gotten the minutes over Caleb Banks had he not been sick.
It's a good question. But they're very, very different players. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But Caleb Banks was just active, man. I'm telling you, from this first when he entered the game, I remember if you're looking at the court going left to right, it was the left. That would have been Indiana's into the basket for the first half. Buddy, his shots were going up, and he was down there in the mix. He's only, 6'6"? But I saw his arm up there flopping around trying to get to the ball, and I'm like, look at him playing already. They're playing with it was a great sign. I'm like, man, you could see early. Boom, he's trying to get it on.
Here we go.
Dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. I hope your weekend was great and you're getting a good start to the week. Jim Coyle with you as always, Dustin Schutte as well here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by K-Bello Restaurant. We're down in the Bloomington area, coming down for an IU game. Make sure you stop in at K-Bello, located right on the square. Get the taste and traditions of Southern Italy right here in Southern Indiana. They're also a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. It's totally free. Make sure you go. Start earning wow rewards today. It's a great places like K-Bello. Hey, also after the game, we heard from Malik Renew, who and I need to point out, the freshman just kicked ass in this game. At one point, I think it was 20 of 27 of Indiana's points had come from the freshman. We haven't talked a lot about Jalen Hood-Schifino today because we've just run out of time, but we'll talk more about him tomorrow before the Maryland game. But dude was lighting it up. But let's hear about Malik Renew, and he talked about his relationship and knowing Jalen.
Fino, he's ready to go at any moment, at any time. He prepares mentally, physically, and it's 2 or 3 days before the game time. He's in the gym, getting up shots after practice, before practice. So he's really prepared for when those games come to perform like he performed today.
Great answer there by Malik Renew on his former high school teammate and current college teammate, Jalen Hood-Schifino. And shoot, Dustin, the next next clip is from the opposing coach, and since you haven't said a word, why don't you just say, here's a clip from
Ohio State head coach Chris Holtman.
Obviously, tough game. Give Indiana credit. I thought they really played well. Great atmosphere for a Saturday night game. Great atmosphere. So they were really obviously an energized crowd. Good team. They're playing well. We've got some things we've got to continue to get better.
One thing we didn't hear from him, and we may hear it tomorrow. I'll try to pull that out. But the piece of metal that fell, we haven't even talked about that. Gosh dang, this show is so packed today. But there was a piece of metal that fell from the overhead scoreboard,
not during play, but right as the half was about to start, Bryce Sensabaugh happened to be walking by around midcourt. It lands about 6-7 feet away from him. And it was nuts. And of course, ironic, but I was like, what the hell? I was thinking the whole time, what the hell could fall from that damn scoreboard? And we knew it was a brace of some kind, but I'm like, how could there a brace come loose on both ends? It's like impossible. So what had happened, it is believed, Indiana sent out a statement yesterday that it was just when it was installed and that it has been there ever since. It was a brace, either an extra brace or one that just didn't, it was an extra brace that was never used and was just sitting up there. And the reverberation from the sound and the crowd eventually, finally, after 7 years, moved that thing into a place where it fell, which is crazy.
That is crazy. And it's really fortunate that nobody got hurt, because that could have been pretty. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see how big it was, but I mean, that's going to, I don't know. There's going to be a thorough, not investigation, but a thorough inspection. There we go. Inspection of Assembly Hall now. At least you would hope so after that.
No.
This is the second time in like 7 or 8 years.
This is a complete different thing. I understand,
but you got to look at it.
They did look at it. They dropped the scoreboard down and they examined it.
Yep. Look at everything else. The whole thing
has nothing to do with the scoreboard. It was a scoreboard when this is a brand new scoreboard they put in 7 years ago, and somebody left a damn bracket up there. They just left an extra bracket up there, and it had been sitting there for 7 years. And, there's that sound that comes out of there. It's reverberates. And so finally.
It's interesting that it took 7 years for that to fall. I feel like there's a lie somewhere in here.
I don't. I guarantee it was probably just sitting there laid up against something, and, it probably barely moved. Total incidental incident. Absolutely. But that did give people reason to on social media. Hey, they got a new arena. You need a new arena. I'm like, brother, I didn't
say they needed a new arena. I'm just saying.
No, I know that.
Just do an inspection. Make sure everything's all good. That's all I'm saying.
Leslie correctly points out Indiana just played in a 100-year-old barn.
True. That's true.
You know what? And if look at Fog Allen, the field house. That thing was built in, the 1800s, and I'm kidding, but it's perfect. I was there this year for the Kansas game. I'm like, man, this is everything was just kind of perfect. It was a 16,000 seat stadium, and the seats were all just, I'm like, man, this is how you should have. They did it right when they built that one. They really did. And they've had no reason to have to make any changes. They don't have suites. They don't need suites.
I need suites.
Yeah, well,
I'm talking about like candy, like
Peppermint I know.
Bark.
Does peppermint bark grow on a tree? What do you think? It grows on a tree?
Put it right in your coffee.
Here's another funny thing. Not only was I heading to the game in 2016 when Indiana was playing Iowa, I was just going as a fan. I was driving up. I was also sitting in Section F, which is exactly where that piece fell from the side of the wall. Oof. In Section F. So that's funny.
It's funny because nobody got hurt, but my goodness, that was slightly terrifying.
That one would have been much, much worse because it was a much bigger piece it was like 14 inches by 8 feet.
Yeah, the way it took out that chair, it would have instantly killed someone.
Oh, did it take a chair out? I don't remember that.
I'm pretty sure it took out one of the seats. I thought it just crushed it. There's video somewhere, I'm sure.
John's in the conversation.
No, I'm here just because we have 2 minutes left.
Oh, okay. David says he thinks the coaches have finally gotten Malik's attention. He's been playing much better these last 5 games. For a while there, he was playing with no confidence, no idea what his role was.
Yeah, well, he's a freshman, still learning, still growing. I think that, well, and I'll tell you what, I asked that question to Mike Woodson, about Malik. Not Malik, about Caleb, and about seeing his growth. And he said that he's extraordinarily happy about that. And people will talk about development and growth. That's what he was talking about. We'll hear more from Mike tomorrow because we talked about that. He talks more about that it's a process and this and that and the other thing. But we're about out of time. I don't want to run us over to. We got about just
1 minute.
1 minute left. Man, it was another great show. Great to have Dustin back on, as he has been on assignment, and we'll be off and on assignments as we go. But hey, that's better than off, right?
That's right. That's right.
Tomorrow on the program, another great one as usual. The great Mike DeCourcy, the Hall of Fame writer from the Sporting News, as well as being a Big Ten studio analyst, will join us, and we will really start to break down this Big Ten season. We've got more to talk about with it because it has really become a fun thing. The games over the weekend, we didn't get a chance to talk about those, the other Big Ten games, but we'll do that as well. But we'll wait until then to do that. Chronic Hoosier on with us as well tomorrow, if I didn't mention that. Big thanks to Don Fischer, of course, and Dustin Dopirak today, as well as we heard from Caleb Banks, Malik Renew, and Coach Mike Woody. Look forward to that. Big thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. And we appreciate you more than you know. We're back tomorrow to do this all again. And big welcome to our friends on WJRB up in the region, the voice of the region. Couldn't be happier to be there with you guys. Make sure you reach out to us on indianasportsbeat.com so you can follow along, make comments, and do whatever you like. But we're back tomorrow to do it again. Dustin, appreciate you, my friend.
See you tomorrow.
Sure. Keeping us between the white lines. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition